time. So Trisha, shout out to you. It's pretty early for you over there. So this is our first ever Map Dynamics Coffee and Connections. We're going to be talking about how to rock your next virtual event. I hope this will become a series, but for now, we are going to kick off with Pump Up the Crowd and Bring the Fun with Teri Carden. I'm your host, Alexis Simoneau, and I'm jazzed to be here with you today. I don't know if jazzed works, but we're rocking. It's music themed, right? So I see a lot of cameras on, thank you, but please feel free, if you don't have it on, to turn your camera on and be ready to join the conversation. We want this to be interactive and comfortable, and I'd like to encourage you to warm up the chat with your name, your organization, and the name of a song that pumps you up. We will be recording today, so if you registered by Zoom, we'll be following up with that list to share a summary of notes from the chat and things that are shared there, and then of course the recording of the session. So my favorite pump-up music is pretty much anything by Macklemore. I'm a big Macklemore fan, but one of my favorites is the song Glorious. So if you have some burning questions you want to ask, or maybe some examples and ideas, I hope you keep those handy. They may come up and we'd love to hear them. If you came here to just sit back and listen, that's fine too, of course. If questions come up as the conversation's going on, please feel free to share them in the chat and we'll be sure to discuss them. I have my wonderful teammate Remy, who is literally a rock star for the band Revel and Romance, which was playing and is kind of still playing right now. So check them out there on Spotify. But he's gonna host the chat and he'll bring any questions that you ask to us and we'll chat there. I also have my teammate Lane from Map Dynamics and Austin with us today. So they are rock stars and we appreciate having them. All right, a few more things. We scheduled this for an hour, but this is our first time doing this, and we don't really know what to expect. So it may end early, or it may push through the full 60 minutes. Either way, I want to make sure that everybody here gets great content and some awesome ideas so you can pump up the crowd and bring the fun factor for your events. Now that that's out of the way, I am thrilled to introduce our very special guest and headliner, Teri Carden. Teri is a girl geek in normal girls clothing. She has a background working for associations and a big heart for what associations do in the world. She is a girl boss and entrepreneur who started Review My AMS, 100 Reviews, and is the brains behind the unique and memorable events such as AMS Fest and Non-Doozapalooza. Anyone who's participated in one of Teri's events has seen the level of creativity, fun, and intention that surprises and delights attendees and sponsors alike. As a little plug for Teri, it's not too late to sign up for the final round of Non-Doozapalooza, which is taking place virtual this week. They're also doing a Halloween costume party, which you can join, and I can share more information if you want to follow up with me about that or us about that after. So if anything, you got to check out her really creative marketing that she's done and her event program. It's just incredible. So I'm about to pass it on to you, Teri, but first, I need to know what song pumps you up.
Okay, my favorite, I put it in the chat already, is Together by Sia. That is my favorite pump up song right now. If you guys have a car, roll up the windows and crank it up. You will not be disappointed. It's my favorite.
I can't wait to see the whole list. I haven't had a chance to keep an eye on the chat yet, but before we move on to the next question, I do want to take a quick snapshot of the crowd. I have to figure out how to get rid of the chat window. And so if you don't want your picture on the internet, please turn off your camera. And if you do, please make sure that it is on. If you've got a mug, I want to see it.
You gotta put your glasses back on, Alexis. That's what mine are still on. You put your glasses back on.
Oh yeah.
Your rock star glasses. There you go.
You guys brought your glasses. Bring those on. The chat keeps giving me messages. So, and on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. All right, cool. I got one. I hope you were smiling and not eating breakfast. So, Teri, I'm going to pass it off to you if you want to say a few words, but I'm going to start with a question. Tell me what you've been up to since March, but I also want to know, many associations are planning fall in-person events, and as many of you know, that's not really an option as we thought it would be in March and April. So really the reality of focusing on virtual events is more important now than we may have thought earlier this year. I'd love to hear from you, Teri, what you've been up to, and if you can give me a rundown of what you've seen in virtual events. What are the trends, the best practices, what's going well, and maybe what could be improved?
Okay, so that's the only question of the day, right? That's it, because we can cover up the whole hour just right there. No, thank you, Alexis and the Map Dynamics team for having me on as your first headliner. Wow, that just feels like a huge compliment. And I hope I do this time with you justice, and that you walk away with some fun ideas to bring the fun factor to your next event. So first of all, thank you so much for having me on as your first guest. I'm really excited about this Coffee Connections that you're hosting. So, okay, let's talk about the first question, which was kind of where's Teri been in and why the last few months, and why has she been capable about talking about virtual events? So I was supposed to have my first ever in-person Non-Duzapalooza event in Nashville in May of this year. In March of this year, it was inevitable when the tornado came through, the first thing. And then the second thing, COVID came through. It was not going to be possible for me to host the 150 or 200 people that were already registered for Non-Duzapalooza. And that was greatly disappointing to both me and the 12 sponsors. And so with tears in my eyes, I went to the sponsors and I said, hey guys, this is a crazy time. I don't know what I'm going to do. I guess we're just going to have to put Non-Duzapalooza off till next year. For those of you that don't know what Non-Duzapalooza is, it's an event all around non-dues revenue, okay? And so the conversation, it's a tough conversation, but I've always been able to make my events fun in person. And I just knew there was gonna be no way I was gonna be able to bring that fun factor to a virtual experience. So I told my sponsors, we're gonna have to just hold off till next year. And they said, heck no, Teri Carden. We are going to rock it out in a virtual world, just kind of like we're rocking it out today. And we're all stepping up, and we're going to help you create a virtual experience like your audience has never seen before. And I said, okay, well, we'll give it a try. And every single sponsor stayed on, which was an incredible testimony to those that are supporting the event, and quite a humbling experience for them that we're supporting a very first time ever event. So with that in mind, I was thinking about the state of the second question that you asked, Alexis, which is like, what have you seen that has been working well with associations, and what kind of hasn't? What's the landscape? What do associations generally look like in the virtual events world right now? And, you know, when I think about the first 60 days, that time from March and April till about the 1st of May, associations were like, what events? Like, no, like everything's getting put away, and we're going to just even figure out how to work from home, right? That was the challenge that associations had that first, 60 days or so. We just needed to get back to the basics and figure out how to work from our homes. And so that was kind of step one. And then the associations took the next 30 to 60 days to figure out programming, right? Like, okay, now we know that we have this program that's coming up in August or September or October. What are we going to do with it? And what do we do with these other programs that are so important to our members? And so they've sat in a 1-2 month window of evaluating and working with their boards and their volunteer leaders on how to make that program still work, right? Because now we're all used to working from home, and now how do we, make these programs work? Then you take the last 3 or 4 months, and what associations have been doing is they have been trying to figure out what products to use to make these systems and make these programs go around now that we're in this inevitable for who knows how long virtual world. So that's where I think associations have been. That's kind of the landscape of the last 6 to 9 months. I think associations are doing a good job looking for solutions and looking for tech to support these virtual experiences. But I think where they're actually falling short, which is why we're here today, is the actual experience itself and bringing the fun factor to the table. Because now that virtual events are ubiquitous, they're nearly everywhere. It doesn't matter what hobby or or what profession you're in, you can get involved in some sort of virtual event. So what is going to set your virtual event apart from other virtual events? And that's what I'm excited to dig into today. So I think there's a lot to be learned about the organizations that are doing experiences and bringing the fun factor.
Awesome. Thank you, Teri. Yeah, it's definitely been a big 2 years. I mean, 7 months, and we've learned a lot. And it's just interesting how the entire industry is evolving to make all those changes personally, like you mentioned. But of course, oh yeah, do what these organizations do every year, which is their annual meetings in a completely new environment. So I want to follow up with that question. I know, so our main audience today is the association industry, where many of these annual conferences are very education focused. And so I'm curious for the organizations that are really focusing on that education. I know for me, I've seen the education is really, I've been very pleased and impressed with how that can be delivered virtually. But the fun factor might be hard to justify, and it might not be, a lot of people might not think that that's a necessary component. So how would you respond to that?
Well, like I just said, these events are everywhere now, and associations might even have competitors who are producing events. And what is it that's going to set you apart? It's no longer about the education, and it's no longer about the platform. It's about the experience you're providing. So let me go back to AMS Fest, which I created an in-person event all around the association management software discussion. So again, a topic that is not loved to be talked about. However, we managed to talk about a really tough subject and what is a high sales and a very convoluted decision, but also to make it fun. And whenever I started hosting AMS Fest, there's one held in Chicago in the spring and one held in DC in the fall. My motto in life in general, so like even let's get higher level for a second, is if you take care of people, people will take care of you. Okay. And so if that's my motto for when you come in my home, that's my motto when you come into my events, that's my motto when you come become a partner, that's a motto when you become a client. It doesn't matter if you're coming in my circle of life, I'm going to, if I take care of you, you're going to take care of me. This is kind of how it works. And if we think about our attendees and our sponsors this way too, it just can create a whole different relationship and a whole different dynamic to how you're building out your programs, right? So when people would come into AMS Fest, I was there to greet them at the door. I was there to give them hugs. I was there to tell them thank you for being there. We did all kinds of crazy things in person. I would bring an artist in, and the artist at the end of the day, one day, she created this 6-foot canvas, like 6 by 4 foot canvas, and she painted it for 2 days, and it was this beautiful abstract piece of art. And on this break at the end of day 2, she took it and she just started slicing it up, right, in front of everybody at lunch, and people just start freaking out, like, what is she doing? She had just spent 2 days building this absolutely most beautiful piece of art. And then at the end of that, during our toast, which is another human element, you're in my home, we're going to do a toast together. You're at my event, we're going to do a toast together. Everybody got a piece of her art to take with them. And it just created this element of, you're in my space, you're in the environment that is important and meaningful, and how can I take care of you? I would give my phone number out. My phone number was plastered everywhere. I get so many prank calls now. I don't know who it is that has a vendetta against me, in the association space. I'm just kidding. But my phone number is everywhere. You could text me, or you could call me, or you could email me anytime. I was at the ready for you, just like as if you were in my home. And so when this whole virtual situation was going down with Non-Duzapalooza, I was like, well, this is going to suck, because these people aren't coming to me anymore. And how am I going to be able to create this unique experience? I know I can deliver the education, right? Just like associations can. Like you said, there's some really incredible education that's out there. There's some really incredible content creators. I mean, people have been holed up in their homes, and all they're doing is writing. They're writing like crazy. They're getting involved. They're doing research. I mean, this is what they have to do. This is the time they have on their hands. And so I think in the education world and the research world, we are skyrocketing, right? But what is happening in the experience side of things is that we have easy access to the education, and we have easy access to really good tech platforms, Map Dynamics. And so, but where we're lacking is this experience side of it. And we just need to think about bringing people into our homes. I love the quote by Maya Angelou. See if I can find it. People will forget what you said. Sorry, you're probably going to forget what I said today, but that's okay. I understand. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So if you go into your programs through the lens of more than education, it's about how you're going to make them feel after the education is over, you're going to create a completely new experience that's way more than education.
I love that, Teri. And I'll speak from experience. I had the opportunity to attend an AMS Fest in Washington, D.C., and one of your virtual Non-Duzapalooza events. And I think that, I mean, the idea list can go on, but it's really easy to add a little bit of creativity and flair to the basic pieces of an event, like a reception with local craft beer or a bourbon tasting or something like that. So I've been really impressed with the creativity and homey feel that you've brought to your events. So
yeah, well, let me just add on to that really fast. Sometimes we pick a city to host our events because of the life that lives in that city, right? And so how can we deliver that life, or how can we at least come close to delivering that life and that feel and that vibe, in the same way that we would depend on a city to bring that life to the party, or bring that city to to bring that life to the event. Think about that. Now we don't have that city that we depend on to bring that energy and that vibe and that human connection and the good food and the good drinks and the camaraderie that we have of being in person. And so we have to come up with new ways to do that in this world.
Yeah, I definitely miss the food part, that's for sure.
Me
and
too.
Exploring new cities, but I know that there are probably some virtual ways that we can do that. So I'd like to, kick off with you, but I mentioned this in the introduction, but we'll be sharing some of the feedback that we've shared. Wendy has a good food solution idea. I would love to hear that. So, but I will take some of the feedback that we got, either said out loud or shared in the chat, and we'll put that in a list and share with everybody after. So I would love to do a few fun ideas that you can incorporate in your event. And so for y'all in the chat, what's something that you're really proud of, something that you've brought to an event, or maybe something you've seen? And Teri, I know you've already shared a few ideas, but tell me about something that you're particularly proud of that you think might inspire some others in their events.
Okay, so let's just start with this. I love sharing this next idea, and then the next thing that people automatically jump to is like, but I don't have any money. Okay, if you saw my humble little space, okay, I'm actually working from my office garage. Okay, I turned my garage into my office. It's just basically me and a very small group of team. I don't have a huge budget, okay, but I still manage to make things happen by asking people if they'll help support, and by just really being mindful of how you can make maybe sponsors turn something in, or I'm going to get to what I'm trying to say here in a second, or just on a shoestring budget, right? So for example, I've got Non-Duzapalooza coming up this week. This is actually I'm in virtual event mode face right now. Like, it's on Thursday and I'm just sort of flying by the seat of my pants right now on everything. You know how it is when it gets close to an event. Virtual events are tough, guys. Don't be fooled. These are not easy to pull off. So when I say, okay, yeah, bring the fun factor too, you've got to do what the city would normally do for you, plus what, in its virtual environment, and bring fun and bring vibe. And you're like, I'm dying over here. I mean, it's hard enough just to pull off the virtual education piece of it all by itself without having to build in the fun. Okay. So you need to have somebody on staff whose job it is to bring the fun and work in and weave in elements. So it's little old me. I've got a little old tiny budget. Okay. The venue is actually still holding about $17,000, okay, mind you, for the in-person event that we were supposed to have this year. That's just real, raw, transparent Teri going on here. So I've had to find a way to bridge the gap so that I can still bring the fun factor and still be able to pay for something small. So I send little treats to my attendees. So I ask them, where's your current place of business, right? Because not everybody is working from the actual office anymore. I don't have addresses even in my system anyway, but you've got addresses in your system. So you can ask them, where's your current place of business? I'd love to send you a little treat. You know, I swear it will never be used for spam, or I say it will never be used for like evil spirits or evil something, you know, like it'll always be used for good, right? You know, so you got to make them feel reassured too. This is a great example. So one of the things that went in the goodie bag this week, which by the way, this was the cover, again, bringing in the fun factor. It's a cartoon. It says, "Oh, Jim, I think he has your eyes." And Jim is a zombie. He says, "Not again, he'll choke." Sorry, I know it's really corny, like it's a total dad joke. Okay, I wish everybody's volume was up so I could have heard the chuckle at least a little bit maybe, but, and then on the back, I kind of tell them what to expect and I give the sponsors some love, extra love. Did my sponsors ask for this? No. Is this as simple as for me to do, to print from my machine to make an extra smile? Yes, absolutely. One of the sponsors stepped up and said, we'd like to add some candy bars to the bag. I'm like, that would be really awesome if we could do that. So they added candy bars to the bag. And so we got PAI, which is the Profitable Association Institute, to provide some candy bars. They shipped these to me. I got to put these in a goodie bag. I don't have the goodie bag at my disposal right now, but it has the Non-Do's-a-Palooza all over the outside of it. And I was able to fill the goodie bag with like little silly trinkets and treats. I've made up some Mad Libs about when we go back to the office, which who knows what your coworkers will look like when you go back to the office. There's an adjective you get to fill in there. And just trying to make it fun. And then what they get this tangible item at their door, okay? And what does that say to them? Oh, Teri cares. She's going the extra mile. I want to show up to this event, right? That's one thing that's just one of many things that I've seen. I mean, I would love for you guys to chime in and say, you know, share other ideas that you've had on how you have created. I'm forgetting what your original question even was, Alexis, about
an idea that you had, or just an idea you've been proud of. So.
Oh, okay. There you go. And I did a box. I did a bigger version where I might have sent beverages, a whiskey or vodka or wine of choice at my event that I held in August of this year. So that was a little bit of a bigger pool where I got some of the sponsors to kick in an extra $500 here or there to help support the mailing of the event, of the package. And people got it and they were so excited. And in that box, okay, you can tell I get excited about giving gifts. I love giving surprises to people. So in that box, there was an envelope. An envelope was sealed and it said, the instructions were, do not open this envelope until it's time during Non-Do's-a-Palooza. This one was called the Virtual Bazaar. And so they would open their box and they got all these goodies. They got their beverage of choice in there. They got something from Nashville in there. They got several things, koozie from vendors that sent in. They send me all kinds of stuff to add to this goodie box. And then there was this envelope and it was a mysterious envelope and it was self-addressed back to me. And so I said, during the event, don't open this up except for during the event. And so during the event, there was a time, you know, where everybody was together and there was a heightened response to people being present during this time, by the way, because I gave them advance notice. During this time, we're going to open this envelope. And then during this envelope, or during this time, we all opened the envelope and everybody had a different quote in there. And it was about being a part of a big piece of the puzzle. There was one piece of a big puzzle, something along those lines. I don't have it in front of me. I can send it to anybody that wants it. And there was 2 puzzle pieces in there. And throughout the time of the next 2 days that we were having our virtual event, they could just write a fun quote on there. They could draw a picture on there. They could inspire the other fellow attendees with whatever it is that they wanted. And then the envelope was already self-addressed stamped to come back to me. And so my real intention there for anybody that did puzzle pieces with me was that as the puzzle pieces come in, I was going to social media them as I opened them, it was on social media, and then create this giant puzzle with all of the non-Duzapalooza attendees. And then now we've made this big puzzle, and they're all part of the, everybody has a part of the piece of the puzzle. I got tons of puzzle pieces back, but I'll tell you, social media those, like, I'm not the kind of girl that has my hair done and my makeup done every day, and I was getting puzzle pieces left and right. So that's going to be my Thanksgiving plan, is to pull that puzzle together from everybody. So that was a lot of fun, and it created something that had them wait for it. It created an element of surprise that they got the box, and then they had to wait to open that envelope until the time came for the event. So that was kind of fun.
And I loved that. And I think you kind of mentioned this, but there was like this anticipation of a toast where we all toasted together. So I know, it's really common in virtual spaces to show up late, or maybe whenever you feel like it. And so I thought that was a really clever idea to get everybody together for that moment to share it. So I have a few more questions that I came up with for this to make sure that we go over some of the things we promoted, but I did want to ask a question from the audience. So this question is, what can we do to help our members want to attend a virtual event? We're learning so much in this space, but what can we do to get them to actually show up?
How can we get more people like you?
I'll go to all the events. I'm the worst example of all time.
Yeah, you like to meet new people and new faces and connect. You're a connector, and this is the only way you get to do it right now. So I would say that's probably, if I had to bet, that's a lot of people that are on this line. I will say that I want to share a quote with you guys. I don't know if this is the right place to do it, but it feels like it all of a sudden. My very first virtual event that I did in May. So we took non-Duzapalooza all virtual, and now this will be the third one this week, but the first one was held in May. And one of the attendees came, and we stayed and we hung out afterwards. And we just chatted. There was just a bunch of us on the line chatting. And he wrote me immediately after we all got off the line, and he said, I enjoyed the post-conference conversation just as much, if not more. I'm extremely introverted. So if I had gone to a happy hour in person, I would have probably sunk into a dark corner somewhere and tried to stay invisible. Virtually, however, I really enjoyed the conversation. So we have an opportunity to provide a networking environment that we've never been able to do before when we were only thinking about in person. Because when we do in person, we nearly sabotage anybody that has anxiety in large groups, anybody that might be a germaphobe before all of this, anybody that can't travel because they have a loved one at home, or a sick child at home that is, or an elderly parent at home. Elderly, I think that's a new word. We just made a new word. An elderly parent at home, or something along those lines, or they're just restricted by budget. And so I think as we continue this conversation, that's a good lens to kind of think through, is that we do have a real opportunity here to provide valuable places for people to have meaningful interactions with our organizations.
Yeah, I asked a question on Facebook earlier about, what has been your experience in virtual events and things like that, and some of the feedback that was particularly interesting to me is for those people who might be more introverted or reserved, is they like this space to engage kind of on their own terms, but in a way that makes them feel a little bit more comfortable than they might in a massive room full of people. So I know one thing that is always interesting to me is this feeling of walking into a room full of people, and how, if done correctly, or how intimidating it can be to walk into a room full of people. So that reception, that welcoming reception when you walk in, sometimes alone, and it's like, oh my gosh, where do I go first? I'm going straight to the bar and just praying, that this is as easy as possible. But I know with virtual events, it's a little bit easier to set up your program to help connect people earlier and sooner, depending on how you set up that program.
Yeah, there's an idea that I'm seeing kind of sprinkle about, which is cohorts or special interest groups, and which associations are all familiar with, those ideas anyway. But what about around a specific event? So, for example, if I were to create cohorts for Non-Palooza, maybe we would create a cohort around anybody that wants to talk pricing strategy, or anybody who wants to talk sponsor models, or anybody who wants to talk affinity programs, or anything along those, or maybe it's just a potpourri, cohort. And these people could get to know each other in a small group environment prior to the event itself. And then when they show up to the event, they see a friendly face, or they see a profile that feels familiar to them. And then they're not coming in completely cold. They actually have commonalities with someone else in the room. And cohorts, this is a side note, kind of a question that should be answered later, but a side note, you can actually have the sponsors be able to be the moderators of those cohorts or those small groups. I keep them probably trimmed to, say 10 or 12 attendees. And then then a sponsor can actually be a part of the cohort, where they can facilitate the conversation, not necessarily be the sales pitch person. We don't want that person being there, but we want them to be a part of the conversation and be able to listen in on the conversation. And then I say that then these cohorts could actually, if you need to break out during any time during the event, as a break or something like that, you break people into their cohorts, because of the people they already know and they're friendly with anyway, because they've met. And now they have a place where they can go to talk about the content that just happened, in a friendly environment of people that they already know. And the coolest part about cohorts, then after it's all over, okay, at the end of the year, people look around and they go, dang, my new best friend is Alexis. And I mean, I didn't even meet Alexis at a conference. Oh, my device is kicking in down there.
I've heard that one before.
I'm sure you have. So I didn't even meet her at a conference. How did I meet this woman? She's incredible. And I've gotten so many connections from her, and blah. Okay, I met her in this virtual environment. We got friendly in a cohort, and then we got to continue meaningful conversation. And now next year when we go to the event in person, now we have a real connection. And guess what? It draws a straight line back to your organization. Mm-hmm. And they're going to thank you for that.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's back to the organization, and that thought comes back up when they've got to renew their dues. And they're thinking,
oh, absolutely.
You're more likely to want to be involved with an organization where you have friends. I mean, FSAE, for example, I can't imagine not going to that conference just because FOMO, and I want to see all my friends. Of course, I know I'm going to learn, but that's a really important piece that is easy to underestimate when you're thinking about these events, is those connections that your organization gets to be behind. So I know for the event that the Non-Palooza event, it was honestly I guess like 2 or 3 months, it was the first event where there were a handful of people who hung out in the networking room towards the end of the meeting, where I actually got to meet people. It was the first time in months that me, a professional networker and meter of people, hung out with people I didn't know in an environment face to face. And it was amazing, and it was simple. So, I mean, I call that fun, but it was, I think meaningful is really the point, in how are we creating meaning and a valuable experience for people who are paying to be part of your event or volunteering their time to be a part of your event. So I'm going to take a look at my questions. If any come in through the chat, I see that where we have our resident rock star come in handy. We're talking about rules and restrictions on sharing music. during introductions and pump up the crowd. So for the audio component of this, Remy, and Teri, maybe you know this, but curious to hear some feedback on those general guidelines for sharing music during programs.
I'll just say I use Audio Jungle for my intros and outros of videos and any kind of audio that needs to be played during, or I depend on the production team. So I work with a virtual production team on the last 2 events, and I'll depend on them. But for the most part, I use Audio Jungle. It's reasonably priced, and they've got all kinds of funky and fun and spooky and whatever kind of music you want there. I don't know if anybody else has a resource that they want to share that they've used before. Going to YouTube and recording on YouTube is not a good idea. Don't do that.
Thank you. Remy, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was going to say pretty much any piece of a song that's recognizable is subject to copyright issues, even if it's 4 seconds. If you know exactly what song it is, you can get in trouble for it. But at the same time, that the main issue with that, like this video is being recorded, we're going to put this on YouTube. You can make sure that it's not monetized. That will help you a little bit. Okay, so if you put a video out there and it is a monetized thing, then you are definitely getting in trouble because the music is adding value to your video and then you're trying to monetize it. You're going to get in trouble, right? So either look for non-copywritten music, which tons of artists just put stuff out there all the time. You can just go and get free music, and it's literally designed for this purpose. You can go and get free music, or if you've got it in the budget, pay for your annual license, like Wendy was saying earlier. Just like if you were a music venue, you pay your annual license, which covers your butt, and basically it will distribute the necessary funds to take care of those artists. So the 3 minutes of their music being played in the middle of your show or in your whatever, they'll get a portion of that license money that you guys pay every year. So license it or look for unlicensed music that's free. Yeah.
I've used a service called Ben Sound, which is free, and they have some pretty good songs.
I've used that one too.
I literally just Googled like royalty-free music. So that comes in handy.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about the schedule. And I know a lot of people complain about Zoom fatigue, and some poor event planner souls are hosting events that are 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. just like they would be in real life. So what's your recommendation on the length of a event and how to just keep people engaged throughout?
Okay, the whole notion of 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. or whatever you would have done in person, that's common sense. We can't do that. Especially if now we're drawing crowds across the US or internationally, that's definitely a huge no-no. You can't cater to all time zones. Whenever somebody comes to Chicago or comes to Nashville or goes to Florida somewhere, it's easy to hold people into that time zone time frame. So kind of 101 here is, you need to be graceful about when you can have people's time. So that doesn't even mean the length of time, but it also means the time zones, or the time zones, but it also means the length of time. So I'm fooling with this week's schedule. After doing 2 days, I did a 2-day virtual event. It was from 2 to 5 plus a happy hour. So that was about 3 hours of content. This time, and that was over 2 days in the afternoon. So my California crowd could come and my Winnipeg crowd could come. And then now I'm starting at 11 in the morning and we're ending at 5. And we're ending at 5 with a costume party. So that last hour is just really a lot of more networking fun. So that's the first thing, is you just need to be mindful of the time zones. People have other things going on, but they will stick with you if they want to stick with you, okay? They will, okay? So if you're making it engaging and it's fun, or if they're in desperate need of the certification, they will stick with you. Those are the kind of the 3 reasons why they're gonna stick. If it's fun and there's something that unexpected that's going to happen, for example, I have about a closet full of 15 costumes that I'm going to be changing out throughout the day. as I live host Non-Do's Palooza Spectacular from my garage office this Thursday. And so I'll be doing quick changes in the middle of, you know, the pauses or the breaks, or as the case studies or the content rolls out. I will have costume changes. And so people might be wondering, okay, what's going to be the next change, right? And so maybe having a host or a hostess or an MC that can kind of bring flavor to the content and add color commentary here or there. That will also break some of the monotony up from, you know, from what people might see as a static virtual event. Like I said, the tangible idea, you know, I had the puzzle pieces that I put in the one box. We've got Mad Libs that we're doing at this one on Thursday. People appreciate the unexpected, and people generally love surprises, right? So some games that you can kind of fit in or weave in, or some of the expected things are like on the 5 minutes that happens before the content starts, okay? There's a reel, and the reel will run. And one of the questions that I'm asking on the reel is, what are one of the resources in 2020 that you couldn't live without, or that you're taking into 2021? And then people in the chat can share that, right? And that's helpful, just like we shared about the Audible resources. You know, people are learning extra things. And so the more you're tapping into those little nuances and those little times when they can learn something new, will create a more well-rounded experience. Let's see. Okay. Some other fun ideas is, I mean, trivia, that's kind of been done a million times before. But what about trivia that's what's up close, okay? So you have something and you get a picture and you zoom way, way in and you get people to guess what it is. And people guess the wackiest things, right? You know, and it's a lot of fun because people get into it. And that keeps people engaged and entertained, right? But sometimes it's about entertainment, right? That fills the gap to get them to the next spot where they can be educated. A scavenger hunt, like if we all split up right now and went and grabbed something meaningful from the space or the room that we're in right now, and we showed it, and then we said, okay, why is this meaningful to you? I might hold up my beta fish right now and say, this is Inchy. Inchy looks like the sunset, and you know, he only eats once every 5 days, and sometimes I think he's dead, and yet he's life on my desk every day, right? Or how about cameos? For those of you that haven't heard of a cameo yet, if somebody can put that into the chat, it is an app that allows you to ask a famous person to give you a custom message for your attendees. Okay, so let's imagine I had Meredith from The Office, okay? Let's not imagine it. I did it. So my welcome video for when people came to Non-Do's Palooza Virtual Bazaar back in August is they popped up the screen, and there was Meredith from The Office saying, hey, Non-Do's Palooza attendees. Now, people were not expecting that. They weren't expecting a welcome message to come from Meredith from The Office. I think I paid like $70 or something like that for her to give this 1 minute custom message that says, Teri's really looking forward to you having an awesome day here. You know, and you guys, they turn these messages around in like 3 or 4 days. Okay, so if you got in a virtual event that's coming up and you really want to wow your attendees and give them something unexpected, go out to Cameo and see if you can't find a famous athlete or a famous musician or famous actor or actress that could give you a custom message. Again, something low cost but creates a high impact for unexpected. I told you guys about changing up the costumes, maybe bring on a special guest. Maybe there's somebody that's willing to do a virtual appearance within your industry that's really high profile that might not normally have been able to come to your in-person event. People are willing to do a lot more these days with the virtual time on their hands that they have. And then what about like a speakeasy? How cool would that be if you just had a select group of people? Like, I hate to exclude vendors sometimes, okay? But sometimes, you know, this happens, right? So if you had maybe a type of role or a type of member type or something like that where they had a speakeasy and there was actually a Zoom room where people could go where they know it's exclusive conversation about something, or they get something exclusive in this room. That is another way, again, kind of, you know, switch it up a little bit. Well, one of my last ideas that I have under this is to get people involved and accountable to each other in a space that is a virtual environment. What if you put people on teams? So we like the idea of the cohorts, right? But the cohorts aren't necessarily holding each other accountable to coming to the event. what if ahead of the event you put people on teams, and in their little trinket box that you send them, or their goodie box, you give them something that represents them being on their team, and you tell them your team is counting on you. For every session you show up to, you get this many, your team gets this many points. For every, conversation builder you do or something, I don't know, you create some sort of game out of it, and you're on a team, and then you're dependent on each other, and then you have points and you have prizes at the end. So there are lots of ways that you can engage people to stick around,
I love that. That was like a big slew of ideas and lots of really good ones. Thank you so much. 10 points to Gryffindor, Shelley said. So, so I want to open it up and see if just kind of specifically ask everybody. We've gone through the key questions that I wanted to ask Teri. So we've got 13 minutes left and would love to hear your specific questions. So if you guys have a event on the calendar that you're gearing up for right now, what are some things that you want to think through? Or if you want to raise your hand, I've got the participant list up so I can call on you that way and share something that you're really excited about. I wanted to share this when Teri was talking about creative ideas, but I'm in junior league, and some of my junior league friends are here today, but I hosted an event called Ballots and Bubbles, which was a review of the Florida ballot amendments. And I drove around town with my committee, and I passed out these bags, and it was called Ballots and Bubbles. So I had a little bit of a budget to put together, and I had buttons that say vote, a pen for voting, and talking about our alcohol challenge, I bought champagne bubbles, which were less than $1, and a plastic champagne flute. So a little silly, but a little kind of delightful when you got this at your door. And in our case, everybody's in Tallahassee. So it was definitely time consuming to drive around and drop those things off. But I've had a few customers ask questions about things like DoorDash or meal delivery or things like that. So I don't have a lot of examples of that working, or of people who have done that, but that seems like a fun idea, and just a way to get people excited about something about your event. So for us, for example, I knew, it's really common for a bunch of people to sign up and then they don't actually show up. So we all have that challenge, and I really wanted them to just feel excited about being there. And I thought that if I gave them a gift, they'd actually show up. So a little bit of sneakiness there, but I don't see any hands raised. Does anyone want to chime in?
There is a hand raised. Tia.
Oh, I don't see it. I'm looking at the wrong list.
Well, she's
okay. Alexis, I don't think I did this.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I have speaker view on.
That's okay. So this weekend, I attended something with the Denver Public Library, and they were doing a fundraiser. And one of the tickets that you could purchase was to have a catered meal delivered to your house with the signature cocktail and a goodie bag that the vendors put together for promotion. Included in my vendor goodie bag was a bottle of wine. And then my meal came with all kinds of food, and there was this beautiful little cake. But they worked with a catering company, and you just, in order to buy that ticket, you had to be within 25 miles of a specific address. And so that was a way to get us all involved. But then part of the event, they did an interview with an author. They had some people come on and teach how to do a dance step. They had a band that played music for part of it so that everybody could practice their dance steps afterwards. But then they also did the March of Dimes call in and give us your donations thing. So like they did all of that as well. So like it was really fun. We made an event of it at our house. I bought 2 tickets so that my daughter and I could both have dinner, but then my mom joined us too, and there was enough food for all 3 of us to eat. It was amazing. It was so much fun. And like doing the Charleston in my kitchen was hysterical. it would have been funny if the cameras were going the other way, but we're all in our jammies and we're doing the Charleston in our kitchen. So, and then there were also different other levels of tickets that you could purchase, but the event was free with the exception of if you wanted to have dinner catered to your home. So that was really a fun night.
Thank you so much for sharing. And Tia, you have some great successes from your events too that I love celebrating.
Yeah, we had a great event this fall with our Colorado Association of Libraries. We thought we would maybe get about 200 people registered, and we were almost at 400, which was really amazing. And one of the things that people have told us in our reviews afterwards is because it's all about the learning with this group, it's because we're all librarians. So the thing that they are really enjoying is having that just-in-time learning, and so that's how we've marketed it, because we have put all of the sessions that people were comfortable with us posting for people to access 6 months after the event, so they can go back and watch the event when it makes sense for them to watch the event instead of having to attend everything. And people have really appreciated that very much.
That's a beautiful mashup, Tia, that I found that works really well. If you have the live event and you say there are going to be things that happen in the live event that you're going to miss if you're not there. Mm-hmm. But if you miss the content, if you need that content can be housed, that content is housed in an on-demand portal somewhere else. So it's kind of that sort of delivering the best of both worlds. You're marketing your event so that people can come and people can interact and connect with each other in your virtual event and say, you're going to miss it. You're going to miss Teri's costume changes if you don't come to Non-Diesel-Palooza on Thursday. But if you need the content on the case studies and the pricing strategies and all that good stuff, it's going to be housed in the on-demand portal. So you're kind of catering to the best of both worlds. That's a beautiful mashup.
Yeah, we're using Map Dynamics specifically to deliver that content. So people have to register. And we actually have had some people register after the event to get the on-demand content as well. So that's been really amazing. So we're really thankful. It continues to be a moneymaker for us, which we don't have that option when we do our in-person conferences. So that's been really good.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Tia. Anyone else have something to brag about, something cool they've seen? Would love to hear another example.
I'll pop it in. I actually wanted to try to help Alex's question. So we had a semi-tech panicky group that, even though these are technicians, actually, they're pretty smart people, they are panic stricken at the Zoomings and the FaceTimes, and they were very, very anxious group. So we actually did Remo, which some of us have used through FSA, and that was like our networking, like get to face, and that completely overwhelmed a lot of them. So I would say about a week and a half before our in-person virtual event, we opened it up as a demo for everyone, like come play. And so that week and a half time span seemed good because it was close enough to the event to promote the hype, but far enough away that it wasn't stressful and still allowed people to talk about, hey, did you try this? If you join our conference, you get to participate in this. The other thing was, I think we kind of wrote the fine line on when to send out like the know before you go and what to expect. It wasn't a lot of our email communications, but we ended up waiting about 2 to 3 days before our conference to release the full, you are in Zoom webinar. You can't do this, but you can do this, and releasing some like YouTube tutorials. I feel like with that group, that wasn't soon enough. We got far more phone calls for that last minute. So if you know your group, look at doing it a week out or possibly further, of just letting them know ahead of time when your communications will come, what to expect and how to expect it. I think had I done that maybe a week or two before, we would have really helped calm them down of, hey, your conference starts on Friday, you will receive communications on Wednesday. That's something I would recommend for the future, is help them help you. Learning lesson.
That's awesome. Thank you, Shelley. That helps a lot. We have a very tech-averse membership, so thanks.
That's okay. So that's great advice, whether you've got a tech-averse membership or you just have a new platform that you're presenting to an audience that knows tech, right? So my audience is you guys, basically, and you guys are pretty tech savvy for the most part. You know, I'm giving you lots of credit there because credit is due there. You guys know what you're doing with Zoom, et cetera, you're professionals. But some of your membership don't. So like I have office hours. They're not really office hours. I call it the spectacular get together thing that I open up 2 days prior to my event itself. So it's like, okay, this Thursday is the event. We're from 2 to 4 Central Time, or 3 to 5 Eastern Time. Teri's going to be available in this room to chat and hang out with you. Pop in at any time. I'm just sitting here working away unless somebody pops in to say, hey. Well, if they pop in to say hey to me, that means they've already gone through the login process and they've accessed the site just like they would the day of. So that's already kind of done, taken care of. And now they know how to work the system, right? And this is 2 days ahead of time. So I send them out a little note. Hey guys, I'm over here in the playroom, or I'm over here in the hallway. Y'all come say hi to me. I'll be there from 3 to 5 today. So come say hey. And then it gets them that hurdle is already, accomplished by the time the day of comes. So real helpful.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Shelly. I see Marvelous Mark's hand raised.
You talking to me? One of the partners that I partner with on some events here in Las Vegas was challenged from Google. They were doing a new product launch, and they were asking us to do a lot of stuff on a virtual platform that would have been really challenging. So Gary from AE and ES got with some people in Europe, and we actually built our own platform. And long story short is we were able to put in like a whole ballroom of amusements and interaction for what we called Millennial Madness with the Google attendees. And we had 13 casino tables with live dealers that could actually turn their cameras on and interact with the people and do live dealing and live gains. We had 2 caricature sketch artists where people would sit down in front of the camera, the person would sketch them and then send them the JPEG for them to print and frame later if they wanted to. We had a DJ streaming the whole event. I was hosting the event, and then we did our Rockstar video bingo as an activity. We had a mentalist. We had arcade rooms where they could go in and play Space Invaders and Pac-Man. So it was almost 1,000 people, but it was pretty amazing that we could bring them all together in one room instead of putting them in separate rooms, and keep the fun and engagement. And it was open for like 6 hours, so people could come and go as they could please. There were networking rooms where if they just wanted to sit down in a chair and talk to each other. So it was pretty cool. And I'm finding that just about anything that you can do live with a few adjustments, you can do virtually.
Yeah. Thank you. Those are some really interesting things. I would love to participate in some of that stuff during a virtual event. I have not been so fortunate, but that sounds really awesome. Thank you for sharing. And we are getting close to the end of our hour, and I want to thank Teri for being with us today. She is wonderful. I love her energy and creativity, and I'm going to shout her out and say, please take up her word and reach out to her, get to know her, check out what she's been up to on LinkedIn. She shares a lot of ideas there. And thank you, Teri.
Can I make one last plug? If anybody on this group wants to go to Non-Diesel-Palooza on Thursday, I would like for you to come as my guest. So no charge to you. I want you to be a part of this so you can see another virtual event kind of unfold. I will be switching up costumes, and I'd love for you guys to be there. Just email me. My email's in the chat there. And Alexis can also provide it to you. So if anybody wants to come, be my guest.
Okay, thank you, Teri. I am looking forward to that event for sure. All right, and then a couple other notes for those of you who are still on. Please, if you have any topics you'd like to review in future events, please send those to me. And if you are not a customer, I know we have many customers in here, and you would like to learn more about the Map Dynamics platform, you can follow up with me and we'll set you up. So hope everybody has a rockin' day, and we will see you next time.
Thank you, Alexis. Thanks everybody for being here.